Just a random microphone. Welcome to this episode of By the Wayside. On today's episode, of course, we have an Omar Recommends. That's a little later in the show, so stick around for that. But each segment, I am speaking with one of the creators of the Group of Seven comic, Chris Sanigan and Jason Lapidouille. Said his name wrong on purpose. I've got to figure out what I'm doing with this mic. Stick around. We'll be right back. I sure do love that opening. Thank you again, Parker, for it. It's absolutely amazing. I like watching it just like on its own. I'm here at Wayside Comics and Cocktails in Newmarket, Ontario. And I am so lucky enough that shop owner Omar opens up for me so that I can record an episode of, checking my mic, record an episode of By the Wayside while no one is here. Sometimes it gets a bit busy and there's so much happening, you get lost in the fray. Sometimes you don't. I'm lucky enough that the gentlemen from Group of Seven are here today, and they took time out of their time. They came in early to do an episode with me, so thank you very much to Chris and Jason, who we will talk to later in the episode. In my openings, we're going to make it real quick. I know that I'm wearing this shirt today. I'm going to stand up. So my shirt is a Cats and Banana shirt, and it's actually my cats. So there's my cat, Kenobi. And there's my cat, Rooster, Rooster Macaroni, and we call him Little Mac. And I got bananas on my shirt. So that's really fun. And since my guests today have written an alternate comic history about the Group of Seven, a superhero, Jason Lapidus is going to kill me for saying that, a group of amazing Canadians that did something amazing during World War I. I got to unlock the door because Christine's here. That happens. I wanted to talk about my favorite Canadians, or just Canadians that I thought of like off the bat. Jim Carrey. I'm a huge fan of Jim Carrey, so of course I'm going to include him on my list. It's not like a top 5 list or anything like that. Terry Fox, as a child who grew up in the 80s and the 90s, and continuing today, Terry Fox is the peak of what a Canadian should be. Selfless, heroic. I was going to say willing to do anything for anybody, but I think that's selfless, right? I'm not a dictionary, so I'm not 100% sure. Terry Fox is an amazing person, and if you can take part in a Terry Fox run in your local community, I would. Raising money for cancer research, sign me up. Sidney Crosby. I'm not a hockey guy, I'm not a sports guy, but the thing about Sidney Crosby is that remember the gold medal games from the Olympics back in like 2000 and something, and I think it was him who scored the winning goal. Hi, Omar. Omar is one of my favorite Canadians. Sidney Crosby kind of to me feels like the pinnacle of leadership. Does that make any sense? Omar, what do you think about Sidney Crosby? Thumbs up?
Come on.
Just give me a thumbs up. Just give me a thumbs up.
2 concussions up.
I'll take it. My 2 other favorites, James Howlett, if you know, you know. And I've been to a couple concerts in my life, and one of them was Avril Lavigne. And did you know that Avril Lavigne is Canadian? That's right, Jason, I said Avril Lavigne. I saw Avril Lavigne at Casino Rama. That was really fun, because I enjoy a good Avril Lavigne song. If you saw the new Deadpool and Wolverine, she has a song in the movie, and also it was on my playlist. So, sorry, guests Jason and Chris are just outside of the shop here, and I'm just watching them because it's very distracting. Because when I record here at Wayside Comics and Cocktails, that happens. Cat shirt, checked on that. My favorite Canadians, checked on that. I wrote something here. It says, if you downs, if you clowns. I don't know what I wrote here. I can't read my writing. Hey, Omar, can you read what this says? What did I write there? I wrote it. What does that say to you? If you clowns, if you downs, what does that say to you?
It says I don't know. If you clowns, cat shirt.
If you why are we going through the cat shirt thing?
It's like a weird version of Confucianism. If you clowns, cat shirt.
All right. Thanks, Omar.
No problem.
We need to wrap it up.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Omar. Stick around. We're going to be talking with Jason Lapidouille, and we're going to be talking with Chris Sanigan, all on this episode of By the Wayside. Welcome back. That's how we start them now. The website says writer of Group of Seven, Chris Sanigan, like Flanagan. Chris Sanigan is here with me today, along with everyone from the Group of Seven. I know Jason's in the back there, and Omar, of course. I was kind of hoping they'd look and wave. Chris, thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, awesome. I'm just going to double check my mic because I have a tendency to forget. Yours is on. Okay.
Excellent.
Oh, crap.
Yep. No, get right in there.
No, we're good. We're good. Chris.
Yeah. Hey.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to do this too.
There are those too.
I wanted to talk about the comic, The Group of Seven.
That's what I'm here to do.
And I wrote down a description of what The Group of Seven is.
Sure.
We discussed it off camera.
Yes.
And I'm going to give it to you right now.
Do it.
In a fictional alternate comic past, historical icons from Canada's frontier embark on an adventure during World War I. Is that accurate, or do you feel like you want to explain to the audience a little bit more?
Well, certainly my writer flag went up there on the use of the term frontier, but I know where you're going, so
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Frontier does suggest, as you mentioned, as we chatted about, covered wagon era type, rural kind of woodsy kind of, and the era that we're talking about really is the First World War, so it's the beginning of the 20th century.
Yeah.
So it's a bit more urbanized, a bit more Canada at times, a bit more developed at that time. However, I think Frontier probably elicits some imaginative kind of thoughts about what might be considered accurate about the book itself.
So, but what is also interesting is when someone outside of Canada looks at it and they see frontier. What did I say?
Well, you said
I said-
frontier.
okay,
so
the
frontier.
Well, don't get me on my pronunciations. Canada's frontier.
Yeah. There you
I
go.
did it again.
There you
Canada's frontier.
Yeah.
People outside of Canada be like, oh yeah, because the 90s didn't come to Canada until the early 2000s.
That's right.
So we're
It's a good reference too, by the way.
thank you very much.
Yeah.
We're decades behind. So
We are.
I get it. We're just lowly people here in Canada.
Yeah, but it gives you the immediate impression that it is something that does take place in the past.
Even though I say World War One,
Yes. Well, but that's instead of First World War. Is that what you're
does
saying? Matter?
it matter?
So I don't think it actually matters, but it is. So if you are so there's two. You say it differently depending on where you are in the world. The Commonwealth countries refer to it like which Canada remains part of and certainly was part of during that time. First World War. So Britain, you'll hear First World War. All that kind of former empire space. First World
Interesting.
War. World War One is much more of a like a republic type. So like the Americans called World War One. So interesting fact.
And I said
and
World War One.
to be fair, they are said interchangeably. To be
Okay,
fair,
that's fair.
but if you came across World War One and then you heard First World War, you'd be like, why?
Yeah.
It's because it's just the way it was labeled, marketed, remembered.
Interesting.
And I will say, interestingly, I think this is interesting anyway. We have done a few shows in the States, right? So we go down south. We're just outside Toronto in Newmarket, Ontario, and we switch the pitch because First World War doesn't connect, it doesn't resonate at all, and in fact, World War One almost doesn't connect in the United States because the United States doesn't enter the war until 1917. Actually, around the time our story takes place. So there isn't that popular recognition with the era or the event
Interesting.
or the conflict. It's much more World War II, Vietnam. Those kinds of conflicts tend to garner a lot more popular understanding.
Interesting.
And so we have done a few shows, whether they're cross-border or like Niagara Falls, Ontario, where there's a lot of cross-border traffic, or down in Washington, D.C. We're there for Small Press Expo a few years ago. Yeah, we just switched the pitch up. We don't talk about First World War. We talk about like adventure from 100 years ago. We
Cool.
switch it up. Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool. Now, do you go through all of your press materials and writings and add and take away the U's from all the words? Okay.
No, we leave that in. We leave it in specifically.
And you add it. You take out the Z from recognize and then add an S. Really throws off the Americans.
Right.
I don't think anyone in the United
Comics.
States watches. Chris, I gotta read these questions,
Oh, I'm
man.
sorry.
As a writer for the Group of Seven,
Yep.
is it also a collaborative effort with the artist, Jason?
Absolutely. 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, we are writer, artist in the back. I also like co-creators. 100%.
That's a fair statement. I mean, I guess I
Yeah.
could have wrote writer and co-creator because you don't do
You
the
could.
artwork, correct?
No, not at all. Gosh, no, you don't want that.
Okay.
No.
Well, I don't know yet.
Oh no, I can tell you don't want
The
that.
next segment is a live episode where you draw me pictures.
Oh my
sorry.
goodness. Can I choose the theme?
Nope. Sorry, we're drawing names out of a hat.
Okay.
How has your day job, Chris? How has your
Yeah.
day job informed the story of the Group of Seven?
It's informed it absolutely. So I work in the heritage sector in Ontario, and so I studied it. I went to school specifically to get a job in the sector. So I've surrounded myself with the stories, the personalities, the characters, the events of Canadian history, and so because of that, it was not a difficult leap to start writing fiction in a sense where I can then combine those influences and that love I have for the content and the stories into something that I really wanted to see, which is really an amalgam of day job professionalism plus 80s action movies, those set back in the First World War, plus the comics that I love, that Jason loves, and then just kind of mash it all up into this universe that we've created, which is now 14 books large and just keeps growing. So yeah.
It really is the epitome of write what you know.
Yes.
And I dig it because when I was younger, so like in my mid-teens, I would be like cutting grass, just with like a push mower, and my mind would wander, it'd come up with stories, and it was always the story of like a lowly gardener. And I was like, I'm out here by myself cutting grass, and it's
on the frontier.
The frontier of grass cutting.
Yes.
And that's not historical. No. That's at the beginning of, because
that's just life.
Evolutionizing lawn cutting. I don't think you can evolutionize lawn cutting any more than it is.
Do you think it's probably hit its zenith?
I don't know. They got robots now.
Oh, man, robots.
Eventually they're going to be doing our jobs.
Yeah. Well, they'll be doing this.
Yes. This is actually AI. I don't think I can say AI. I might we might get canceled. Oh. I just mean like YouTube will be like,
hey, wait a minute. Hey, wait a minute. Wait a minute, guys. Are you actually that, or are you real human beings?
We'll never know.
Come to Wayside to find out today. 11 to 4.
Chris. Funny enough, because we're talking about AI, and it is a hot topic. It's been a hot topic for a very long time, Chris. Looking at the current state of the world,
sure.
I can't believe this segue really worked.
Yeah.
Do you think that a team like the Group of Seven would excel?
Wow. Well, the current state of the world is, I think on surface level, a hot garbage dumpster fire. But, that's just us having, kind of cursory understanding of what's going on.
It's fair.
But no, I think there's this is going to come off as, here we go. There's always room for collaboration and hope and doing the things that put you, I think, on the right side of the ledger of history and the ledger of life. And I think that part of the story of Group of Seven, A Most Secret Tale, which you can get at Wayside Comics here, 11 to 4 today, pick it up. One of those things is that, the part of the story is that there's choices, and they are given choices to make in the interests, and the choices serve multiple interests, and they are faced with continuing down a path or continuing or re-examining humanity, their humanity through through the action and through the story and how they find themselves. And they make a determined choice as a group to go a certain way, which speaks to how they want to live their lives and how they want to come out on the other end, being able to look themselves in the mirror at the end of the day. And I think there is, there's a lot of grief, and there's a lot of hardship, and there's a lot of misery in the world right now. There's also a lot of people who care, and there's a lot of hope. And so I think those things have always been there. By the way, you talk about the current geopolitical state, but this is probably the narrative of human history to some degree.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it looks bleaker than it actually is. But I do believe that when you put people together, let's go back to this assembling of personalities or characters. Would a group, a team excel? I want to believe that there would be some kind of response, some kind of collaborative response. That can get us to get us to those outcomes that really benefit everybody.
That's a really diplomatic answer, Chris.
Thank you.
I really liked it. Now here's a question. This is off the top of my head. I didn't write this one.
Ooh.
Based on your answer about
Yeah.
the question about whether or not the group of 7 would excel
Sure.
in today's world, would they be a covert team or would they be a public team?
Oh wow. It's so interesting because they're such by nature of the circumstances they find themselves in the first world, they are by definition a public team.
Mhm.
And of course, there's an element to that though where they're not quite well known. One of the fun reasons why it's this team and these characters is because they are younger men during this conflict,
Yes.
and then they leave the conflict and end up becoming, as Jason and I talked, like lions of 20th century Canadian history, whether it's in politics, sport, science, medicine. Like they kind of cut their teeth and kind of figure things out,
Yeah.
or get a sense of their purpose as young men. Maybe you're 18, maybe you're Lester Pearson and you're 18, you're seeing the world, and gosh, who knows, maybe you'll become prime minister, or maybe you're Frederick Banting and you're studying medicine at University of Toronto, and you go and you serve, you come back, and maybe that influences you. A few years later, you're co-discovering insulin.
Yeah.
Whatever it happens to be. But I think, getting back to that, what your question is that there's a really interesting dynamic as if you are public, because you are putting yourself up. Now, to be fair, I love the covert angle.
Yeah.
I mean, makes for great stories, makes for great media, right? All those kinds of things, But there's something about being out there and putting yourselves out there, ready for criticism, ridicule, anything that might come with it, that kind of might be the downside of public persona, and being ready to face it. And I think it's what people need to see. They need to see leadership. They need to see people stepping up and to be inspired. And I think that might be going back to one of your original questions about the state of the world. Is I don't know if there's enough inspiration amongst leadership, just in general. Around we could go the highest levels around the world.
Yeah.
We can talk about your local counselors, whatever it happens to be. But I do think that is something that we're not seeing enough of people stepping up in those positions. We certainly see enough of it on socials. We're seeing people rally behind the causes, right? But I think there has to be this other level in public office, and then the decisions that come out of there, where people need to stand up and talk about what needs to get done so that crises are averted, and outcomes are reached that are, again, those like mutually beneficial things.
Awesome, Chris. When I think of a question on the fly, like that, because I'm such a professional.
Sure.
When I think of a question like that, every word that you said, it always brings you to, because there's always a divergence to something. There's always layers to something.
Yeah.
And the Group of 7, when I read the comic, I really enjoyed it, of course.
Thanks.
No problem. That's it. I thought of sort of like an early 20th century Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Interesting.
It's a group of individuals, like any team, of people that are a little confused as to what their mission is. But then in the end, it's just like, yes, Rita, I get it.
Right.
And I, because I'm a team guy, like I'm a team reader, I love my teams.
Yes.
And any time that you can put a powerful, thought-provoking, intelligent group of Canadians in a team, I am 100% on board.
Yeah.
I really do like the Group of 7. And I know that Omar, in one of the Omar Recommends from our past episodes, the Group of 7 was an Omar Recommends. So you know that everyone here at Wayside Comics and Cocktails in Newmarket, Ontario absolutely loves it.
That's amazing.
Chris, I can't thank you enough for taking the time and coming and speaking with me today. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. And for everyone that's watching at home and on the run, because you can watch from your phones these days. Speaking of the current state of the world, everything is on your phone. Don't go anywhere. I have a lot more to go. Thanks, Chris.
Hey, Jordan, anytime.
Awesome. Welcome back to By the Wayside. I was going to say welcome back to the episode, but I don't know where this episode's this segment's gonna lie in the episode. So if I say welcome back to this episode, it's all out of order. I edit things out of order. We record things out of order. A lot going on up here, Jason.
You sure?
Right now, yeah, 100%. I got to pay attention to what we're recording here. I got to pay attention to that your voice is being picked up by the microphone. I'm always looking in the background because sometimes something fun happens. Omar does something fun, and I know Chris, your co-conspirator and co-creator of the Group of Seven, is in the back. Jason Lapidus, said your name right this time. Thank you very much. I practiced. The website says that you're the artist for the Group of Seven, but we also just discussed that you're also the co-creator and co-conspirator of the Group of Seven, so we're going to stick with that. When working on the Group of Seven comic book, what is the importance, if there is an educational component? How important is it that there is an educational component?
Instinctually, I think it's very important. I'm not sure if it has to go through every aspect of the comics, but I don't think it was ever a question that we needed to discuss or plan that it was going to be something where there is an educational component. I've been in an educator role, formally and informally, for a very, very long time, through camps and eventually schools, as a younger man, and still am today. And it's just one of the facets of life that is important to me. Now, I've got a couple kids. My wife is also a teacher. So we're all thinking about education, school, learning. Lifelong learning is an important thing. I don't necessarily know why. I just am a curious guy. And with everything that I've ever read in comics, I always wanted to know more.
That makes sense.
And we love the idea that there is just so much more to know. And some of it involves us as storytellers, and most of it does not. Most of it is out there for people to discover and go, their own route through history and culture. So it's just like an unspoken value, and I'm not exactly sure why.
That makes sense. So I'm going to give you my description or my elevator pitch of what the Group of Seven is, so
Right.
that everyone knows. And I know that I've already spoken to Chris about this, but I want to get your take on what my vision of the Group of Seven comics is, because when I say educational component, I think the fact that you use actual people in it is interesting. All right, there's my description of the Group of Seven.
Okay.
In a fictional alternate comic past, historical icons from Canada's frontier embark on an adventure in World War I. How do you feel? How does that description, is that accurate, or do you feel that you could add to it or take away from it?
I'm a big fan of subtraction.
Get off my show. Yeah, go ahead.
Elevator pitches are important.
Mhm.
We only get so many seconds with a person as they walk by our table at a convention, or putting something in succinct writing. This is something both Chris and I value. And so we worked on our elevator pitch, and we hammered that thing out to get it as tight as possible, as accurate, to have not just the meanings be truthful, but also capture the essence of what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And the only, your pitch is yours, and that's what you got out of it, and that's valid on its own.
Mhm.
You take that with you for the rest of your life. That's all. That's all yours.
Why, thank you.
The only word that
But you're wrong, Jordan.
No. The only word I bump up against is the word frontier, because I think it places them in the wrong time period. Frontier, Canada as a frontier, North America as a frontier, in that colonial expansion.
Yeah.
I think that comes earlier, but I recognize there are only so many words that we can find to kind of capture the essence. So that one I bump up against. But
So
again, that's yours. If
that makes sense. No, and I appreciate that. I had to let me find it again, because I told you before when we spoke, I did a lot of crossing off. So I wrote it out, and then I did crossing off, because I used the word history and historical in the same sentence. I used the word past twice.
Yeah.
So thesaurus.com was my friend, and Frontier sounds damn good.
Frontier does sound good.
So it is your comic book, and I am never going to tell you otherwise. But if there is one thing that I can contribute to a 30-second pitch, not yours in general, but just the 30-second pitch, is that I spent years developing board games and card games. And one of the biggest things is the elevator pitch. So when you're
Agreed.
pitching to Hasbro or Goliath, Spin Master, and the What, of course, you have literally 30 seconds. No joke. When they say a 30-second elevator pitch, you have 30 seconds to tell the individual, the inventor's relations person, this is my game.
Right.
And I spent years just on the elevator pitch because I could have gone on and on and on about this game I made about how you build robots. So I literally worked hard, and I worked with the amazing people at Design Edge, who is a board game design and packaging company, to help solidify it. So when it is the blood, sweat, and tears that you've put into this piece of work that you've done, the Group of Seven comic book is amazing. And I love a good alternate history, especially when it's Canadian, because A, I'm Canadian, and B, I like, newsflash, and I also absolutely love when someone takes Canadiana seriously, and that's what the Group of Seven does. Even though it is an alternate history, it is still taken very seriously, and it might come off as educational. Just because of the people that you use are real people.
Right. And we don't actually, early on in the process, we didn't alter history. We played between the lines. So what happens before the events of Group of Seven, A Most Secret Tale, and what happens after don't change.
Mm-hmm.
The individuals just have an experience, during a lost weekend.
Yeah.
Between the lines of history, that don't impact what comes after in a way that would change the history that we are currently living.
We learn these things in school. We learn about these people in school. So when all of a sudden, when
and
it
more
says,
than school, by the way, when you and I were younger men, we had these things on TV called the Heritage Minutes.
Yeah.
And Chris and I also have come to the conclusion that this is a very formative experience for both of us. Something happening, let's just say between, 1990 and 95, we see these Heritage Minutes. I go from being 15 to 20. Chris goes from being 10 to 15, and just a lot of formative things in our world, like our love, both of us, our love of Canadian music, local music, our passion for our Maple Leafs really solidify in that time period. And these Heritage Minutes, I started working at the Royal Ontario Museum, and my love of history really expanded. So there's all these sort of formative things in that moment in time. And I don't think I really covered the individuals in our book in the history class.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was through pop culture,
Mm-hmm.
given that one guy buys and then turns the St. Pat's into the Toronto Maple Leafs, and he is
Yes.
the face of that. One guy is, our airport is named after him, and he is the figurehead of the movement to have the Canadian flag.
Yes.
So this is outside of history class. This is like everyday life. Our airport, of course, is named after Lester Pearson. We read in Flanders Fields every year on Remembrance Day, and that's the leader of the team, John McRae. So these people are kind of just part of life here, as opposed to limited to the history book. And I really
That's
love
fair.
that.
Yeah.
You
You have to look into it, because Bethune,
right,
which is a street in Gravenhurst, Ontario.
and in Richmond Hill.
I didn't know that. So
It's new.
oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, because I spent a lot of time in Gravenhurst. So my father was raised there,
Oh,
so I
right.
spent a lot of time there, and the name was always just like, what an interesting name. And I know recently in the last couple of years, whatever, I was like, I'm just gonna Google it, and I'm like, well, dang, that's a Canadian icon.
Hey, you didn't go to York University, did you?
Do I look like I went to university? No, sir.
I
I
didn't
did
say
No, I
university.
did not.
Specifically
No.
York University. So of the different sort of houses, the different, I'm not actually sure why they call them what they do, but one of them is Bethune House. So the name is also part of education culture in the North Toronto area. So when I'm at York, I know that name again. I'm like coming across it. There was also a made-for-TV movie starring Donald Sutherland in the 90s as Norman Bethune.
I think I knew that. Yes,
Right?
I did. Yes, I did.
So we come across these things. They're just part of the landscape of culture, and just never presented in an action adventure way,
Which
which
is
is
fun.
the lens through which I see the world.
world.
Yeah, it's
Right?
awesome. I think it is, when you think about it as a lost weekend or like the deleted scenes of
Right.
someone's life, I think it's a really interesting take.
It's
That's
fun.
why I say alternate history.
Sure. No,
Because
we
everything
embrace
exists
that.
except for that
We-
one time period that you don't know about. And when you think about it as just a bunch of frat guys getting together, saving the world, I'm on board. Jason Lapidus,
Yes, sir.
when you were doing the artwork for the Group of Seven, did you use the real life faces of these characters as reference, or did you just go bananas
Is-
on the shirt?
Right.
Yeah, that's a callback.
Right. Both. I think I was and still am pretty. I don't want to say the word terrified, but in that realm, let's just say stressed. I'm stressed by and was stressed by the idea of trying to do anything photorealistic.
Yeah.
Or capture anyone's likeness in any meaningful way. I was once in a coffee shop in Aurora, Ontario, just to the south of here, and I was drawing pages for a Group of Seven, and these two older women walked by and asked, "Well, what are you doing? Oh, you're drawing. That's nice. What is it?" I gave them the elevator pitch, and I showed them that's Lester Pearson right there, and the lady goes, "Doesn't really look like him," and then walked away. I was like, okay, so that it's okay.
Where is she now? Not on the show, is what I'm saying.
Right. But my point that I'm going toward very slowly is that my influences artistically are not photorealistic renderings of characters.
Yeah, of
So
course.
I looked at photographs and then I tried to pull out one or two elements that I thought would make that person look different than another character in the book, given that they were kind of wearing a uniform. So just a trait here or there, and then I stopped looking at the photos. And the characters really morph over the 6 issues as my tools change, my style and experience changes, and my approach changed. So there are like snippets of each guide, but
In the end, it's how you interpret these people.
right. And like I said, there's that action adventure lens, and I love superhero comics, and we're not doing a superhero comic, but some of that aesthetic creeps in a lot.
It can be tough to do when your team it's a team of heroes. Superhero and hero, that's the reason why those two words
Right.
exist, right? So it's really tough to
Yeah.
separate. They're just gentlemen without powers. They use their intellect and their normal everyday strength, but
Yeah.
they're still super in the fact that they are going to save the world.
Yes.
So
They're doing something extraordinary.
extraordinary heroes.
Yeah.
They're still heroes regardless.
Yes.
Heroes, they're Canadian heroes.
This is all true.
We could go on and on forever about how amazing the characters in the Group of Seven comic are influential, not just in our daily lives, because of how they morphed how not just the world, but how Canadians act on the world stage.
Mm-hmm.
But in your comic book, it creates a larger scale to how Canadians can be perceived. Sure, we're nice. Sure, we're apologetic. But at the same time, don't fuck with us.
Right.
Even though it's an alternate history.
That that also ties into like the name of the book. So Chris had a lot of the pitch fully formed in his mind before a word was written, and the name Group of Seven was there from the beginning, and that was sort of what I wouldn't say it sealed the deal, but it got me from interested to having like an affirmative laugh, like,
Yeah.
oh, we got to do this. And they're not called, the Super Seven or the Amazing Seven or the
Extraordinary Seven.
Extraordinary, thank you. Extraordinary Seven. But there's a certain understated, not in your face notion to just a group of 7.
Yeah.
And I feel like it was a really nice, obviously there's the art callback and the history and the Canadiana callback from that, but also it's an understated strength to it, that they are a group and they have this mission that we're putting them on, but they don't need your attention to go
Yeah.
be victorious in this mission.
It's interesting. I like that perspective.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And
Thank
I could
you.
see how two creatives like yourself and Chris Sanigan came together to create just this. When you look at it, it is a group of ordinary men doing
Right.
extraordinary things.
Right.
And and they're Canadian, and you can't get all those pieces together make great stories. Absolutely great stories. Jason, I
Thank
can't thank you enough for taking the time and speaking with me today on today's episode of By
You
the
can
Wayside.
try.
Okay, Jason, thank you very much. Jason, once again, I can't thank you
I can't
enough.
do this. I can't.
Okay.
I can pretend to be an ass, but I can't follow through.
I can. Jason Lapadouille, thank you very much for taking the time and sitting with me on today's episode of By the Wayside. Stick around, everybody, because we have so much more and so much more. All right, bye. Welcome back. I know that there's usually a guest when I do a wide shot like this. I just realized I haven't said my name once. I'm Jordan Middlebrook. In this segment, when there's no one here, I always like to do what we refer to here in the business at Wayside Comics and Cocktails in Newmarket, Ontario, is an Omar Recommends, and I know he is just jonesing to tell you about something. Omar, do you have anything for us?
I do.
He does. Exciting. With the stand, we all know I do this stand thing. I don't know how we ended up with this, putting this stand.
Oh, look, it's a stand by me.
Stand up.
I just saw Stand By Me. So all right.
When you watch Stand By Me, do you cry?
I don't cry, but I get very emotional.
Okay, fair enough.
It's a very emotional film.
I think I saw that 25 years ago.
Yeah,
So
it reminds me how old I am. That's why I get emotional. I look at all my grades and I'm like, I used to be young. No, it's not.
I just told someone I was 43 years old, and you know what they said to me? They said, "You got gray real fast, bro." And I was like, "What? What? What are you doing to me?" So anyway,
It happens.
I got sad.
Life. That's what the grades are.
Omar, what do you got for us?
We're having a really somber conversation. It's raining right now. That's what's keeping it down.
Very sad and
But
somber episode of By
because
the
it's
Wayside.
Yes. But because it's raining, I decided to choose for today one of my top 10 reads ever, which is Black Sad. So, and the reason the rain is because this is a sort of detective style story. Right now, I'm forgetting one of the names for the creators, but Juan Diaz Canales and Juanjo Garnido do the amazing Black Sad. It's a world of anthropomorphic animals living in kind of like a 1940s New York, or traveling through the States, basically. But these phenomenal creators are based out of Spain, and I think one of them is from France, I believe. But yeah, they both, I think, I know Juanjo used to work for Disney, so he's a Disney animator. He's done a lot of stuff for Disney, and his artwork is, first of all, spectacular. This is one of the most gorgeous books you will ever read. But they've created this beautiful world. So it's this 1940s, very, if you like movies of that era, and for me, it's one of those things. In the summer, I don't know why, but I love reading and I love watching movies. I love like noir. I love detective fiction. I eat that stuff up. And this is kind of one of my comfort reads. I read this every year in the summer. But it's just a beautiful look at that kind of world through this beautiful allegory that the animals are, because like you can bring out different elements to people and things like class structure, racism, all these really hard topics, but tackle them in an extraordinarily digestible way. That's not just like, that's very visual, but also extraordinarily well written. So the stories are very human, even though they're very animal-like. The main character, John Blacksad, he is a private detective. Yeah, he also gets his fair share of like criticisms in his life, and you get little glimpses into his backstory and his previous loves and who's in his life, and a lot of change happens. There's 3 main volumes, and the 4th volume has been split into 2 parts, which the last part's coming out next month, which I'm unbelievably excited for. Huge things happen in that volume, and it was really devastating. But yeah, it's just great storytelling with lots of those big things that happened back in the day, but told from a different light. And I just can't say enough good things about it. It really is a journey. The character that you follow, he is a wonderful POV character. He really progresses the story, and you learn with him as you go. But you also, it's not like, he has his victories and he has his failures and he just kind of stays in the same place. No, he's actually constantly moving, and things are always happening in this world. So whether he's staying in the same city, or he's road tripping, or he's doing something, or he needs to get away because of X, it's a lot happens. And in this first volume, you get 3 stories in here, which is pretty cool. But yeah, just the tone of it, you just can't keep your eyes away. Like I said, the characters, as much as they are anthropomorphic animals, they really, really do come to life. And when you explore these pages, it's the perfect visual medium, because like you see these big lavish cities in that kind of bustling New York world with all these animals and all these colors and all these things, and you can't help yourself but immerse yourself into that page, and you are a part of that world as you're reading this. And yeah, it's a wonderful experience, and like I said, it takes you on a very wild journey, and it takes you to places you don't think you're going to go sometimes.
A film noir
Yeah.
with walking, talking animals sounds like a very interesting way to take a story, especially because a film noir in comic book form, from my own personal opinion, can be tough to do because there's a tension and there's a pacing to kind of follow along with that might be tough. And I find it, again, from my own personal opinion, with animals, it might lessen that blow.
It very much does. As soon as you said that, yeah. So it's hard sometimes to put a book like that into people's hands because like you're flipping through it, unless like you really like the genre.
Mhm.
They're very like stoic images and very like somber panels, and that's kind of what you're looking at in a book like that. When you're looking at a book like this, there's color, there's light, there's dark, there's all these things to really hook you visually right away. If like film noir or that kind of storytelling is your thing, the art here will grab you in a different kind of way and really suck you into the world. And it's one of those things. Like Juanjo Guarnido's art it really is a magical thing. I would love to have a piece, anything from this man in my shop, especially if I get a black sad drinking a whiskey or something like that. Oh my god, that'd be amazing. But they also did a video game.
There's a video
They
game?
did a video game, yeah, for Black Sad.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's all right, but it's still cool to explore the world. Like
We're
it's-
recommending comic books here. We're
I
not
know, I'm just
recommending
saying,
video
it's
games.
a whole thing. Like it's Black Sad in general. It's just a great character. I really hope they do something with it in a different, in more mediums, because I think the character loans himself well to that. But definitely give this a read. Honestly, you will take a lot out of this, I think, and you will just be invested in a different kind of world.
Awesome.
That's the best thing I can say about this. It just sucks you in, and it doesn't let go. And it really does what comics do best, which is give you a different perspective on things in a bright, different, colorful way. And again, it doesn't, whether it's the words or the art or both or whatever's hitting you, someone just passed by and waved. But like, it's got that beautiful synergy of words and art, and it is everything comics should be. Is the best way I can say.
I like the way you put that. And on that note, Omar, thank you again
No
for
problem.
taking the time. You're here anyway. We're doing an Omar Recommends, and stick around because after every Omar Recommends, we do just a little bit left in the show, so don't go anywhere.
And if you join the Patreon, you might get the special tier where Jordan dyes his beard.
No. No. Gray, it's go gray or go home.
Not the years, it's the mileage. You can call Dr. Jones.
I still look good, so
Not saying you don't. You're a very handsome man.
I love having you on the show.
Just don't shave your beard. It's very disconcerting.
I don't know. Let's see what happens on the next episode of By the Wayside. We should have. I'm gonna do a poll. Will Jordan have a beard on the next episode of By the Wayside?
You're not allowed in my shop if you don't have a beard.
Well, then I'm gonna be doing a show called By the Chip and Malt. All right.
By the door from Wayside.
I will be a busker. I will be doing a YouTube show. I will be busking a YouTube
It's a
show.
busking podcast. By the street.
Stick around. We got plenty more. Oh my goodness. I just spilled my water as I moved my cup. I want to thank my guests again, Chris and Jason from the Group of Seven Comics, for coming in today. Make sure that you check us out on the Patreon. Make sure that you come to Wayside Comics and Cocktails to check out all of the amazing things that Omar recommends. Also get yourself a hot chocolate, which I will be doing once this episode has been completely recorded. Also, don't forget that I am a part of Wayside Creative, an amazing group of people that it's a publishing imprint that focuses on cinematic storytelling from amazing people and creative voices just like you. And if you want to be a guest on the show, I want you to reach out. I'm going to throw up, I don't know, maybe the email address or the email address. Is that I'm going to throw up the website, the email address. I want you to reach out. You can find me on Instagram at By the Wayside Show, and just reach out and say, Jordan, I want to be a guest. Come to Wayside Comics and Cocktails in Newmarket, Ontario, and we will record an episode with you. You'll get a nice little segment, and I'll talk to you. We'll promote your stuff. Doesn't matter what you do. Podcast host, comic writer. Maybe you're a movie writer. Are you a musician? Are you just a person that just wants to be on YouTube? I'm willing to interview you. You know why? Because I would have loved someone to interview me when I was in the heyday of not knowing what the heck I was doing with my life. Anyway, thanks again, everybody, for checking out the show, and I will catch you by the wayside. I really should clean this up.
Man.